All right, Ryan.
This is our student survey that we've been sending out to all of our students who have met with us in the office. They've been getting emailed the link to the survey. Between myself and Curie and Dr. Behrens, we've gone through and developed some questions, and we got a couple that we're highlighting. We've gotten 20 responses back. At the time when the survey came through and Curie sent the results, we had sent it out to 135 which responded. So about 15% or so are actually responding. This first screen shows kind of a breakdown where we asked what kind of student they are, whether they're a prospective student, a new one, returning, meaning that they had been here before but had a gap at some point. And then most of the students that responded are actually our currently enrolled students. So that shows that we still do have a number of students that are coming through, go through and still meet with us in our office for counselors. So that just gives you a little bit of a breakdown. And then here is, we had the strongly agree all the way to strongly disagree with our not applicables. For the most part, based on the questions we're asking our students, they strongly agree that we have been servicing them in the manner that they expect. We did have one strongly disagree on each of or 3 out of the 4 questions. We asked for feedback on as to why somebody either agrees or strongly disagrees with the service they provided. The strongly disagree did not give any kind of examples to reference why they strongly disagree with it. I know from some back and forth that I had with Curie that that's not unusual in a student survey for them to not cite any specific reason why they felt that they were not served in the way that they were supposed to. So that's the brief overview of the survey. I know we only did the first couple slides, but was there any questions or comments on that piece?
Were we capable of reaching back out to the person who said they disagreed strongly to rectify the situation?
We didn't get any contact information for any of the students, so the person didn't tell us who they were, if we could resolve anything.
Okay. What's the percentage of students going through admissions now that are responding to the survey and answering questions?
Yeah, at this point, we're at the 15%. I have another batch that I need to send out from the very end of the week, last week. And those results, I believe they're coming bi-weekly from Curie. So we'll get some more data and see where the students stand with us here in the near future. But I do have a big group that I'm going to get sent out today.
Okay, fantastic. And let's explore what we can do to up that 15%. But this is fantastic that we're really assessing ourselves and getting feedback. So great job.
And then Curie, I see you have your hand up.
Yep, I was actually going to piggyback on Scott's comment. So to boost response rate, which we really need to do for this kind of survey, maybe repeat or prompting emailing. I know that's kind of resource intensive for you, Ryan. If you could have maybe someone else in the office assist with that and do like so if you send surveys out, kind of stagger follow-ups, and you have no way of knowing if the student completed it because we don't collect that information, but maybe just, hey, if you've already completed it, disregard, but we see you visited the office at least once this week, can you please complete the survey? If they see it more than once, I think they take it more seriously if you have the resources to do that. It's my recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll think about a way to make that happen.
All right, here's the big one.
So then here's our enrollment, and the sidebar on the left with the 1122. Those numbers changed because that was actually reflective as through the 19th, I believe it was. But I sent Dr. Behrens the numbers for through the weekend. So as of last night at 11:59.
Today.
Yeah, so it's 1449 is our total head count for the winter semester, basically as of last night. I can share that today is completely booked with appointments. Tomorrow is booked out with appointments as well. So we still are drumming up interest and have lots of students who are working through our office for their appointments and continued registration. It has been busy, and we can see those upticks happening.
Fantastic. And boy, you can really see the data doesn't lie, right? Here's a weekend. Thursdays and Fridays are busy.
Exactly. So,
Yep.
yeah, we hit over that 1,400 mark this weekend.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more about continuing students and the breakdown in a little bit.
All right. Thank you.
Chris, how are you doing? And welcome to our meeting.
Oh, thank you. So I wasn't exactly sure what to bring to the meeting, but this is just some numbers based on fall of this year and fall of last year to look at. So our numbers are a little bit down for students with disabilities as well, although we will not take our final count until the end of the semester because students with disabilities can become registered with our office any day right up until the end. So we will have more counts later. Of concern is always the number of students with psychological disabilities, which again is a little bit less than last fall, but has continued to climb, excuse me, and those students, you know, require quite a bit additional assistance and attention. So that's all I need to say about that slide. I did also do another slide just about some of the impacts that we're seeing in our office based on COVID, increased assistive technology needs, particularly related to testing. So we've purchased additional read writes, single subscription to read write text help, which is, it does a lot of things, but it can read tests aloud in a lockdown browser. And we have checked some of that equipment out to our students. We now currently own 6 of them, 4 of them we just purchased, and we may end up purchasing more depending on how winter goes, because when students are at home and in a lockdown browser and need that test read aloud, this piece of equipment can do that for them. Personnel hours needed, we're proctoring tests via Zoom, particularly in the nursing area, because Examity, which is what they use to proctor nurses, nursing tests at home, if you read out loud, if you use a blank sheet of paper, you are flagged for academic dishonesty. So this is a way that we can proctor the student and still allow them to have accommodations. Apparently Examity does also record the student, but the instructor does not have access to that recording for 2 entire weeks after the test. So they need more, quicker response. That's why we're doing the Zoom proctoring. Some of our students are coming into test, which has been great because then we don't need to do this, but we cannot force any of them to come in and test. If everybody else gets to test at home, they can test at home too. So that's, to have more hours needed to do that. Increased student outreach efforts. We received 483 responses to our survey that was on Brightspace, asking students if they were, it was mostly for Perkins, but we asked them if they were a single parent, a homeless student, somebody in foster care. But then we also asked them what type of services and assistance they needed right now. So we've been following up with those. Ryan's office has helped us as well to follow up with these students. We're providing a lot of mental health counseling referrals, community referrals for food, housing, whatever the students might need. That's what we're trying to get them connected with. And then we are seeing an uptick in, course withdrawals based on disability complications and class format, the online format not fitting well with the students' disability needs. So those are kind of the impacts that our office is dealing with right now.
Chris, would you follow up with some of those withdrawals and just do a survey and really figure out what we need to do to be more proactive next semester to help those students so that they don't get into that situation? Because that obviously affects their SAP and everything, and that's not the goal.
Oh, absolutely. And we are doing that. We're trying to, even reduce the course load, which is something we regularly do for those students, but also trying to get them into the more synchronous lectures is what we're doing now. The ones where the instructors are going to at least meet through Zoom once a week, twice a week, because students need that interaction. They're really struggling without that, one-on-one interaction. So those are some of the things we're trying to do, and bring them in for tutoring if they need it. Because we are still doing in-person tutoring face-to-face for students.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you.
All right, I'll take this one for Valerie. She has definitely earned a day off. And so this is our Frontliners application and enrollment, and this is reflected in the graph that Ryan showed. As of right now, we have approximately 5% of our student enrollment for the winter taking advantage of the Frontliners program. So we have 39 brand new students in Frontliners. We want to keep working to up that. And 44 of our current students will be on Frontliners funding for the winter. So we're definitely seeing an uptick in that. And obviously we've been pushing hard on the advertising, which I know Joe will talk about. So this is some good news. A couple of notes here. Many of our frontline students are not meeting financial aid SAP, though they're still eligible for frontline. So this is a great suggestion. We really need to do a reach out, be proactive with these students and help them to succeed, because they would not be eligible for some reason, whether it be grades or too many withdrawals for other funding. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can now that they're in our programs to help them to succeed. So that's really important there. And Joe, these are yours.
Okay, so this first one, and I apologize, I'm gonna look over to my other screen because sometimes it's hard for me to see here, but this one is our campaign, Google Analytics. So you can see where that goes up there on November 10th is about when everything started running for winter semester registration. There's a number of campaigns. There's the high demand campaign, which is digital, social, and billboards, and you name it. That has generated all that, plus Google Key AdWords, which are when you search Google and you type in, Wayne State University, will pop up at the top, or you type in mechanical engineer, will pop up at the top with a specific place for you to go. 3,583 users as a result of this campaign since November. It started on November the 10th, where you see that sharp uptick. So, and of those, 3,311 are people that are new users, which means they've never been to our website before. So it's really generating a lot of new activity, which is what our goal is. So I'll do these quickly because I could talk about each one for a while. So you can go to the next one. This is the all users to the website, I believe. Yes. So this is all website users. We've had since November the 2nd, we've had 80,353 page views. But you could see where that little plunge there is on November 7th, where those are always weekends. So you can see the same thing that happens with enrollment. They plunge down on weekends, but we're pretty consistent throughout our page at about 5,000 to 6,000 page views a day. So we can go to the next one. This is winter registration, social media. This is specifically Facebook. We started running these pushes, sponsored posts back on November 7th, and you can see the spike and then a little bit of a drop there on the 11th and 12th, but not too much. You're still getting this is actually actions. So the impressions are huge. That just means that it's being fed. That's how many times it's been fed into people's feeds. 20,266 people have been reached. That means they actually looked at it, and then with 292 actions, that means they clicked on it or clicked all the way through the link. And that's usually about 20 to 30 a day. So those are pretty effective. All right, the next one is, where am I going? Oh, registration. So you can see these huge spikes right there. The first big spike up on November 5th. I'm assuming that came from the all-county mailing of the registration postcard. Then we dip back down for the weekend, and then we come back up on November 11th, 12th, 13th, come back up on November 16th and 17th. And what was really pushing those is after we hit them with the whole county with the mailing for registration, we hit 100,000 people with an email. This goes beyond our county borders up into downriver as well. And that was an email that was a registration message as well. Then we come back and hit them again for the people that opened that email. So a lot going on here, combined with all the other things going on with advertising, and you can see these peaks. So 3,024 people have hit the registration page in the 2 weeks between November 2nd and November 17th. Okay. And then here is Frontliners. So pushing this in early November via social media. This is simply, I can't, so this is one of the reasons I had sometimes when folks want to take us off our own website, because then I don't know what the data is anymore. So we're not only pushing people to our website here, but so if I ever push back on that, that's why. But I think for this case, it makes sense to get them right to the state website so they can apply. But then it kind of, we don't know how many people have gone straight to the website, but not to ours. But for this one, it's pretty good. We've had 328 page views between November 2nd and November 17th. And you can see it all channeling as soon as we started to really push it and get the signs and the emails and all that stuff out. And it really jumped up there after November 15th. So I'm not sure, that's the 16th and the 17th of last week. So who knows? I haven't checked it since then. Maybe it's continuing to climb, but I don't know. Pretty good stuff. Next one is, and maybe we'll see what, I think maybe one of these emails actually may have hit then or something. So this is the stop out postcard at the top. We emailed 659 folks who we had valid email addresses who didn't bounce. So 38 of them bounced. 81 open. That's 13%, which is pretty much in line with the industry standard. Pretty good. We also did a postcard to these guys that's going to launch, that's going to go out on Tuesday once we get them printed and ink jetted. The next one is the eligible student letter for futures for frontliners. This one we had whopping 60%, which is really unprecedented, but does happen sometimes with people that are engaged with you. So 548 out of 919 with 87 clicks, 15.9%. That's really, really good. And then the lower one was 126 people opened out of 266, and those who were ineligible. And then this next one that you've got up there is, what is this one? Trying to.
It's Frontliners.
Oh, Frontliners program. So I think you went back. Did you go backwards on that, or is that that's the
Nope.
Facebook? Oh, there you go. My bad. It's hard for me to. That's the Frontliners Facebook post. 308 actions. 8,778 people have seen it in their feed. So pretty good stuff on the Facebook feed for the Frontliners. So that's everything I've got. I did have one more thing I did want to share. I checked today on our not registered students. We sent an email to MCC emails and personal emails for students who are not registered. Really good open rates on the personal email. We sent it to 403 students, 31% opened it. Not so good on the not registered, only 9% opened those out of 794. Sorry,
Okay.
I went long.
Let's come back to that with Tracy, because we've got some good data on that. Can I jump to that first, Tracy, and then we'll jump back to this? Can you hear me, Tracy?
Yes. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Yep, I can hear you
Yeah,
now.
so this
Okay.
is what Joe was talking about, so
this
let's
is what
jump
Joe
right
was
to
talking
that.
about.
We'll
Let's
have
jump
that
right to
discussion.
that. We'll have that discussion.
Okay. So we are looking at the fall 20 to winter 21 continuing student enrollment in this slide. The continuing enrollment at this point as of Friday was 46%. We are deleting out we're taking out the prospective fall graduates and the transfer students, which is an estimate based on past semesters. And then, so we're about half and half right now with enrollment as far as non-enrollment and enrollment for these students, for the continuing students. On Friday, we did start a campaign to reach out to those students. There are 795 students that have not enrolled. We did take dual enrollment and guest students out of that, as well as the prospective graduates. Joe has reached out to them via email. My department is calling all 795 students and hoping to register some of them immediately on the phone. We have actually registered quite a few of those students. It's going to take us some time to get through the list, but we are working on that currently. Let's see. I think that's it for that.
Okay, push those out
Okay,
to
push those out to,
faculty advisors as well.
faculty advisors
They
as well.
email
They,
asking them to reach
email
out
asking them
to those
to reach
students.
out to those students.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want us to continue calling all of them so we can actually register them?
Yes,
Faculty advice, they can't register them over the phones, but we can, so.
yes, we just.
So I
wanted-
will-
Yes, we just wanted.
They may be
They-
more likely to
They may
open
be
an
more
email
likely to open
call
an
from the
email
faculty member that
call
they
from
know.
the faculty.
Okay.
that they know.
All right, I'll send that list to them as well.
Okay. Well,
Thank
let's
you.
go-
Okay.
Let's go back.
Let's go back.
Okay, so the first slide, oh, Joe, do you have a question?
Now, hey, when Scott talks,
When Scott talks,
when anyone else talks, you might want to mute,
when
because
anyone else talks, you might want to mute, because
every time you're
every
not,
time
I can't
you're
understand.
not, I can't understand what.
Yes.
You can't understand me?
I can understand you, but if someone
I can
interacts
understand
with
you, but if
it's
someone
all
interacts with you,
garbled.
it's all.
Okay,
garbled.
okay. Okay, so back to the first slide, I just wanted to highlight some relevant recruitment and retention that the registrar's office has been involved in the last couple of weeks. The first is that we've identified stop outs from the last 5 years. There were 3,845 students. Of those, 701 have private emails in the system. So the marketing team has reached out to them. We have also added undecided and several transfer program areas to the drop-down pick list for the admissions application, as well as the change of program form. And that will help us track those students for various reasons, and also will help us assign faculty advisors for next semester. So I hope that should improve that process. I'm going to skip the third bullet and talk about that. Well, actually, I already talked about that. So the third bullet is our continuing students from fall to winter. And then the last is that we emailed and texted all students who are registered for fall and winter semesters, providing them instructions on how to update their contact information as well as their program of study via WebPal. About half of those students had private emails in the system. Most of them had cell phone numbers in the system. And we are currently exploring the ability for students to verify that contact information as part of the registration process. So we hope to have that up and running for the next registration. And that's then the next slide. This is our course capacity and utilization. So these numbers are as of Friday. We do currently have 8 courses that are full. Anthropology 152, Biology 257, Humanities 152, 250, and 256, and Math 092, 126, and 154. So Math 092 actually filled up over the weekend. I believe in the graph you do see that there are some seats available, but that has changed since Friday. The instructional divisions have been pretty receptive as in adding courses as we've requested. And I know that they're monitoring this data also. So yeah, these numbers are as of Friday, and this includes the most popular courses that are getting pretty full. Are there any questions?
And that's
Yeah, this
Yeah,
goes to
this
Brian.
goes-
What are you hearing from your team regarding these classes that are filled? And are we now having a tough time getting students registered or a tougher time because of that?
I mean, they do have to pivot away from some of these things. You know, I got some response back from them. We've been, I mean, Tracy can attest, my counselors will let you know if a class is filled so we can try to get more sections opened up. Sometimes they do have to pivot to something a little bit different. Thankfully, there is still some different options as far as gen eds and things like that they could potentially go to create a full schedule. But as we continue to creep forward to winter, you know, some of those options lessen as we get more and more classes filled. So they've been doing a good job being able to pivot, but some of these ones that we continue to see the requests for, you know, Math 092 filling over the weekend, that's going to be one that we would hopefully get some more sections open here pretty soon. But they do a good job of pivoting to different things.
Okay, let's keep an eye on that and keep reaching out. Because I would imagine with frontliners as well, that we're bringing in more first-time students than we would have been. And if we continue that trend, we really need the 092 and the English. Carrie, anything to add? We are through our divisional slides.
Well, let me see. I do. Scott just asked me to look at with you all the different institutions, particularly the two-year institutions that our students are transferring to, because that's a point of concern. If you look at the stacked bar chart on that 6-year analysis that I've been adding to over time that I presented in previous meetings, you'll see that we're losing quite a few students to other 2 years, which is likely not the student's intention and not something that we would count as a success. So I can show real quick. Let me share my screen, and I will also say that Scott has asked me to add a few bits and pieces to this analysis as well. So you'll be expecting, or you can expect, some updates from me. So in particular, we're adding some financial aid eligibility status data, some different behaviors around financial literacy, and we're also going to look at separating out the trend analysis by semester rather than cumulative academic year. So that process takes a little bit, and I'm working on that between other projects. So probably after Thanksgiving time, around the next update, you should see some of those changes. Can you all see this Excel file right now? Okay. So I'm going to make this a little larger. This won't take very long. You have this data in the file that I've already distributed to everyone. So Chris, I can get this file to you because you've been newly added to these meetings today. So basically, if you look at the third tab, the transfer specifics tab, this again is just academic year. These are receiving institutions by transfer year, and I've broken those out by the 2 and 4 year. So Scott, you made a comment, I think in one of our discussions last week, that maybe we would only see transfers within Michigan colleges. And actually the National Clearinghouse gives us across the country. So you can see people in Western Nebraska Community College transferring, which is interesting. So what you see here is of the students that were first time in any college students beginning in fall 2013, those that transferred pretty much immediately after starting at our college. The 2-year colleges we lost them to are Wayne, Owens, which I suspected. We see a lot of Owens and Wayne on this report. And then we had a few students leave to Western Nebraska. That's interesting. They probably went together, I would think. We lost them to 4 years, which again, you know, we have to collect intention data. I don't know that it was these students' intention, right, to leave that soon. But if you look further down the line, after 2014, we start seeing some of the other common receiving institutions. So Baker's on here, Henry Ford, Jackson College, Owens again, we're losing students too. So here you see we have 30 students that started first time in any college fall 13 and transferred within the 2014 academic year to another two-year college. And we can layer in there and look at, you know, how many credits they accumulated and those kinds of things. And we can look further at, did they declare a program when they started here, and were they retained in a similar or the same program that they're receiving? But if you get further, which is where Scott was more concerned, further down the line, again, we see Baker, Henry Ford, Owens. So Owens is an Ohio community college, just right over the border, and students are, you know, they pretty much just consider that close to home. For many of them, it is close to home. In 2016, so we had 63 students transfer in 2016. 21 of those went to 2 years. So this is 150% time, right? So they're this is 3 years after they've started. So it's on transfer track, basically for a student that's a part-timer, but definitely not to another 2-year college, right? That's kind of what's concerning. So you can look through and see, you know, some of our typical 4 years, it was likely their intention. Some of these, we see a lot of UT, U of M, Wayne State. So some of those make sense, but, you know, if you get down into like 2017, we had 8 students leave us for 2 years. So, you know, if you drilled into this and looked at these couple students we're losing to Washtenaw, Henry Ford, Schoolcraft, how many credits had they accumulated, and, you know, why did we lose them? And, you know, there is a hypothesis. Tracy and I have talked about this quite a bit. It's program offerings and how we compete, right? And Chris, you're muted if you're trying to add. I don't know but I see you're nonverbal. So I know Chris and I talked about this too. So a lot of the competition is, you know, programs. And I know Owens
Programs, for sure.
Right, Owens has a few really attractive programs for our students. So if you know, in 2019, this is the most concerning, right? So these are students that, this is the last year of data that I've added to this analysis. These students are out considerable amount of time, even if they're part-timers from when they started first time in any college, and we're losing a couple of them. Washtenaw, Wayne, Owens, right? We're losing 4 to Owens. Why are they leaving us after accumulating quite a few credits, I would say? You know, what is the deal? Why can't we complete those students and help them meet their goal here? So this is just an extra piece that I haven't highlighted yet that Scott wanted me to add. And I don't know that there's a lot of context here yet, because we need to look at, so essentially, Chris, because you haven't been involved in the conversations thus far, we have this what's called stacked bar chart. So it gives you, of the 888 students that were first time in any college in fall 13, it gives you a picture of what bucket they fall in each of their academic years. So the blue is students that we haven't retained. They're not enrolled, and that is excluding students that have transferred or graduated. Transferred to a 2-year are those grays. And what Scott is saying is concerning is, you know, when you look at the accumulation, these gray bars are just way too long, right? At these year marks. So that's where his point of concern is. So now we're going to, like I said, add, this will be considerably longer x-axis where we have each semester. I've already started to do that in a different version of this file, so then we can look at what a student is doing throughout each of the semesters of their time with us. And if we look out through, you know, what really is 7 years, but these students really not, because the first year they're just all enrolled, right? If we look out over the 6 years of a student's life cycle here, we can start to understand points of intervention for retention, and understanding educational goal or professional goal. Because, you know, if a student, you know, if we filter further and we see, I don't know why they wouldn't have a goal to be in this gray bucket, but certainly in the yellows, you know, if students are transferring to a 4-year, but, you know, here, if that was too soon for them, if they didn't intend to, that's not a success either. Where we typically would call that a success, because we just bucket transfer as a completion, right? So we have to be more strategic about, did they need to transfer? Was it because we didn't offer services? Those kinds of things. So I don't know, Scott, if there's anything else this is what you specifically asked for, but when we get those additions, when I get my plate clean with all the other analyses I'm tightening up right now, I'll be able to get this complete picture together, and then we'll start working data processing and some dashboarding where we get some, updates, some real-time updates on these measures so that we can track this real time across the student's progression and stop some of these things from happening. And then if we conduct a subsequent 6-year outlook analyses, we should see these proportions change, I would assume. So that's the goal.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you. It's the picture is starting to form. We obviously want to look at those by semester to see when they're dropping out, but let's start going back and putting together a plan to do some reach out. Can we reach out to these actual people and just kind of do a broad sampling survey and actually just ask them, well, why did you go to Owens? Let's get a firm understanding of,
Okay.
Was it a need for different programming, or was it a scheduling issue with courses? So when we get that picture, we'll know exactly what to address. But this is a great step along the way of understanding our students and where they're going. Great work.
So can I make sure I understand correctly? So you want me to craft buckets of levers and say, let's say, for example, take the top levers in a 2-year college and say, I see that you matriculated in 2013, and just in that same academic year, you left us for Owens or another 2-year college, and kind of give them response options and open-ended. Yeah, so I can do that for each of these years. That would be really easy. If the student has a personal email on file, so I'll have to follow up with you and let me know if I have contact information, but we can certainly do that. And Ryan, if you want to coordinate that with me, or rather I'll coordinate with you and keep you up to speed on how that's going. Because if the students have questions or things like that, you might find yourself in a reverse transfer situation. I think it would be smart to put on that questionnaire, what's your current college experience right now? Because if we have an opportunity to do a reverse transfer for that student, I want to refer them to you guys to be able to have that conversation.
Exactly.
Yep,
And
that works.
let's for the survey though, Ryan, all hands on deck for enrollment. Once enrollment is over, then we can turn our attention towards
Yes.
this. This is great stuff, but obviously we wouldn't want to sacrifice our ability to serve students getting enrolled right now. We'll have downtime in January to really focus here. But great, this is great work. This is great work.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments for the good of the order? We're really, I'm feeling good about this. We're really starting to understand our students and see where we can make an impact. For the short term, however, everything is focused on frontliners and getting students enrolled. But as this picture really starts to come together, we'll really have an understanding of what we need to do to retain more students, as well as to get more students. And I know, Ryan, you're working hard on, and Tracy, you've mentioned so many times, and you're just so right, that we've got to have our students personal information updated regularly. So thank you, Tracy, for really focusing on getting our students to go back and ask them to put their information in, because when they stop out and we don't have it, or they go to another institution, we really just have no way to figure out why they left, or what we could have done differently to serve our students better. So good job on that. All right, there's nothing else for the good of the order. We have our marching orders, and it looks like we've got full schedules this week for students coming in, and let's just keep the push there. We're getting out advertising for frontliners, and obviously it's working. Thank you for those reports, Joe. And it's nice to have you, Chris, and to report on disabilities next week. It'll probably be the week after. We will not have an update other than let's just do an enrollment update on Monday, but obviously we have a shortened week this week. So we want to keep our eyes on the enrollment, but we will not have a an update, other than that for next week. So we'll just pass that around via email so everyone has it. But if there's no words for the good of the order, have a great Thanksgiving. I thank you all for your hard work. I'm really feeling, I know I'm pushing hard to get data and so forth in place, but we can see the potential of it to make a difference in the future and really analyze ourselves. One more thing before I go, Ryan, if I could ask, I know you were looking into getting year-over-year enrollment data. If you could work on that to add that to that graph, we'll get a better sense of where we're at for the winter enrollment. And it might be something you'll need to line up with Kiri a little bit. And I think Steve or somebody might have that. I know it's in a book, but it's not easily accessible.
Yeah, I mean, there's week to week. We won't have dailies, we'll have weeklies, but yes, that's something we can pull in. I'll make a note of that.
Perfect. Just add a line graph then to your graph of week to week enrollment point. That would work.
Hey,
Ryan,
guys, I
just
have
be
one-
sure, you can coordinate with me too, but just be sure that, you're using year over year academic year time point and not hard date, right? Because we want to make sure it's the same point in the academic year this time as it was last year, because that'll make a difference. If the
Yeah, I mean,
start dates are different,
that'll be the
we can
tricky part, because it's only done the once a week, and I'll figure out a way to present it, but data's gonna be a little bit different because of the timing, so.
Just start with the enrollment on the first day of classes and work back each 7 days for the enrollment at that point.
I have a question. I was perusing WebPal over the weekend. What happens when there's like 6 or 7 classes, and I think this was in the science math area, I can't remember what class, and there's like 1 on the wait list or 2 on the wait list for like every single one of them. Does that trigger a new class, or does that trigger anybody? Do we do anything with that, or do we, and why does, it just seemed like I saw that a couple different times where there's 6 classes and 1 on each wait list.
Ryan, you want to take that one?
When classes are full, we are sending through, whether it's myself or counselors, when we see the classes are full, we go through sending the request to Tracy, and that gets filtered through to the divisions. Going back to my previous experience in the fall, when I did this, I would give a notification to one of the deans. They say they monitor it every day, and they look to open new sections. So nothing, a waitlisted class will not automatically trigger anything, but
Yeah,
they claim they are.
I mean, and it may be too simple of a thought, but it's like, wow, just take those 7 folks and start a new class and notify them, but. I
Well,
know.
the catch is it might be one person waitlisted for 7 different classes. And here's
Yep.
where we're trying to go, Joe, and Carrie and I are working on this as we speak. But the goal is this, and let me pull this up here, year over year. All right. The goal is that we're going to get towards this, Joe, where we are tracking our enrollment each and every semester and using this data to estimate the number of seats that we will need to work with our academic counterparts in schedule building based on student need rather than what we've done in the past. Right now, schedules are made based on schedules that have happened in the past. And so we want to start estimating our enrollment needs, which is where we are going with this, and figuring out just what we need in order to grow the institution and meet student needs. And so it'll take some time to get here, but that's the ultimate goal with what we're trying to do. And obviously that would change the institution a lot because schedules would not be left up to chance. And a good example right now is the English, 152, English 1, the first course. We can easily estimate within a few seats what's needed in following semesters simply based on the first course for the second course. And so we'll start utilizing our enrollment data, our student data, the things that we're putting together, that Carrie's putting together right now. We know what our retention rates are and so forth, to truly drill down to say, hey, we need 152 seats in the winter because we had 170 seats in this other course the fall.
That's great. Thank you. That's awesome.
You bet. We'll get there.
Joe, we have a projected seats analysis completed for the courses that had highest enrollment in winter 2020. And Scott's preparing a conversation with Grace. And so we have a conservative estimate of the number of sections to add, and then a note to have those deans be prepared to add more. Because basically what we did was we did a time point analysis, and we extrapolated from the rate of registration at this similar time point last winter 2020 registration period, and said, if we saw 63% of our enrollment after the equivalent week ending November 16th, we need to accommodate for that at a minimum, that growth rate now. So it's a mathematical way. It's not perfect, but it's a mathematical way to estimate, or at least justify one more section, which is better than the process we use. Be much more sophisticated in the future when we can get some automation, but it's exciting for now. So he does have a recommendation for Grace, I think, at this point.
Yes, and I have shared that recommendation, and it's been very well received. It's just a matter of culture changing and being able to find instructors on short notice. But in the future, when we're doing it way up front, we're talking about helping, giving them the data they need in order to find instructors 4 or 5 months out, which will be a big game changer.
Great. Thank you. That's awesome.
You bet. All right, everyone. Great work. I know there's a lot to do. So thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great work. Proud.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good
Good
day.
holiday,
Thank
guys.
you. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
You as well. And recording. Go.